Welcome back. This Face to Face on ChannelOne television. Engineer Koffi, you were at VRA since 1981. So you saw the power challenges of 82. Then we saw the Koffi era challenges of 2007. Then Mahama, I think 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
Then he decided to go the IPP way.
Yeah.
And 2025, we are still seeing Dumsor.
Yeah.
What are we getting wrong?
What are we getting wrong? People should understand how the power system works and then work towards that. In 1983, as I said, 83, we had the first crisis. Demand at that time was nothing to write home about. But then we brought in a thermal complementation. Okay? 2007, level was very low. In Akosobo again, we already had thermal. Okay, but then because the level was extremely low, we had thermal, but we could not manage the demand. Come President Mohammed's term again, then we had gas supply from Nigeria, which we're using to run our thermal plants. And then we had a challenge with the gas supply. Somebody a ship, an anchor went on the pipeline, ruptured the pipeline.
Finger of God.
Well, I believe that was carelessness somewhere. So the pipeline was ruptured, I think 2014 or something. When it got ruptured, in the process of when they were repairing, I think there was a safety lapse somewhere where somebody died. So then something that should have taken a shorter period took more than a year. And that took us through the crisis. Okay? Of course, at that time, so we're not getting gas from Nigeria. Hydro was not adequate to give us enough, and then we have to run our thermals on crude oil. I think government have been doing very well. I mean, they subsidized by supplying crude oil. When I was in office, when we had to buy crude oil, VI could not manage. I was always trekking to the Minister of Finance or Flagstaff, and then so at that time, the Bahamas said he was going to fix the problem, and the only way to fix the problem was to bring in IPPs, emergency power plants. And I was with him when we went to Dubai and met Ameri. And we brought in Ameri. Car power also came in. Car power from Turkey, power came in. So many. Let me say, at that particular point, I wouldn't use the point we were desperate. At that particular point, we're not too sure of the hydro. We're not too sure of when this gas pipeline was going to be restored.
And we needed power.
We needed power. And, well, of course, we needed power at that critical time. So we sort of engage a number of people. If you engage 2 or 3 people and one fails, you get 3. If 2 fails, you have this. That's how come we had all these people. People wouldn't understand. You could go engage 1. The timeline could be shifting, and there's no power.
So bring as much as you can within the sectors and rely on all of them.
Yeah, rely on all of them. But then, wait a minute. The President Mahama said, we're looking at 5,000 megawatts. So even if they come in, and we didn't need that much then demand will come. Because, of course, you need the power for the industries to come. It's not the other way around.
We are growing.
Yes, it's not the other way around. And at that time, we're growing by 10% per annum in terms of demand. In those days, demand was about 2,000. So per year, you get 200 addition. It takes 4 to 5 years to even add on 100 megawatt generation. So all these came in. But the good thing with America, I think some of us were actively involved, was the BOT arrangement where you come, generate, and hand over. And as we speak now, and at the time we're coming with this agreement, people thought, hey, this was too expensive. You see, but if you don't know,
for us now?
America for us. So the agreement was that let's say whatever it is, and then after 5 years, you operate, hand over to the government. And it was given to VRA. It was an excellent arrangement. On the hand side, probably all other emergencies could have been gone. I believe that the state generation company should control majority of the generation in this country. So I don't have any IPP coming to threaten you tomorrow, it's going to shut down or whatever. Now, so we brought in all these IPPs to help. And then at that time, when there was a change in government in 2016 December, 2017, there was all this talk that the previous government has signed on too much and whatever. Of course, because some of us were actively involved in some of them, I didn't see where it was coming from. Because at that particular time, not all the plants were finished anyway. There was an arrangement for them to come in certain times. So at that time, apart from Aberi and Kappa who were available, the rest were not readily available at that time. It was with time that they all came on. So if you realize carefully, from 2017, Dumsor was not gone because the previous government's arrangement to have all this excess generation.
So generation wasn't a problem?
No, it wasn't a problem. Fuel was not a problem. But today, since 2017, there hadn't been any additional generation. There hadn't been any additional generation.
So the last administration did not introduce any
No,
IPP?
No, nothing. There's
so there
nothing.
was no new dam? There was no new thermal plants?
No new thermal plants. The only plant that was moved was Ameri, which was moved from Takrady to this place. But that was a plant already in existence in the system.
And car power was replaced?
The car power was replaced from this, but that was an arrangement under the previous government.
Okay.
From I think 280 to whatever.
To 400 or so?
Yes, to 400.
A bigger shape?
A bigger shape. Okay, that was an arrangement under the previous government. So no adequate generation was added on. And as we speak today, if I believe the current government is going to seriously take that serious, because it takes not less than 4 years or minimum 3 years if you are lucky to add on 200 megawatts or to bring any big base load generation.
The conversation now is that, oh, John Mahama is back and Dumsor is back. We told you John Mahama and Dumsor are synonymous. That's what the refrain is now. And we are seeing the power not being stable.
No.
You're saying that's not true?
Simply because there are a few challenges. You need fuel. We don't have adequate fuel. I think I heard some interview on Joy FM yesterday, very interesting. Fuel supply is also another challenge. You see, before John Mahama left, the president left office in 2016, they signed on an agreement with Sahara. I was aware of that, to bring in what we call a floating LNG facility in Tema. Why? Because when you're running a system, a power generating system, you need reliability of supply. And that will also come with reliability of a fuel supply. We have gas coming from our own gas field. We have gas coming from Nigeria. You could run into problem. We've seen problem. We've had problem from our own gas field. It's normal. But if you have this regasification unit where you can then import gas at any time and then regasify it and then use on your thermal plants, especially in our plants in Tema,
in the east,
it will help. But when there was a change in government, that contract with Sahara was abrogated. I know some compensation was paid. A new project was started, which they call Tema LNG or whatever. Nobody knows where we are now. I bet you, if that LNG facility had been on ground, whenever there's a challenge for Nigeria, you can fall on that.
So is our problem today due to lack of enough generation, or it is due to lack of enough
reliable fuel?
So it's a fuel problem now.
Yeah,
it's not
the fuel.
So generation is still good. We are still okay.
We are just neck to neck now.
If all our plants
are available and firing, we should be able to manage the peak right now.
So then if it is a gas issue, then that's a finance issue. Then it's a government now issue where they cannot go and buy the fuel. Because the previous administration said they kept the lights on for 8 years.
Yeah, but why?
Well, even though in the last part it was terrible.
Oh, well, during the previous administration there were other challenges with the power supply.
But they refused to publish a Dumsor timetable.
Yes. I mean, there was an issue where my friend refused to come out with a timetable or whatever.
Yeah.
When you run a system, when you have you don't control, you don't have an unlimited source of fuel supply. You run into this. That's why you have multiple sources. Because at that time when President Mahama brought in these IPPs, Kappa was running on heavy fuel, HFO, and then AXA was also running on HFO, and then the other plants were running on LCO. You can run on diesel. But we're an era where today, if we call ourselves a middle income country, we should not be running on liquid. Extremely expensive and not environmentally friendly. So that's why we need gas. Gas is the interface between that and probably going nuclear.
Do we have enough gas, the one we are producing in the West, to run all our plants?
We don't have enough.
So we definitely have to rely on Nigeria.
We have to rely on
import
Nigeria.
From other.
We have to rely on Nigeria. But then Nigeria also has its own challenges where supply is not always available. And of course, payment is also a challenge.
Yeah.
Where Nigeria has threatened, there have been a number of threats for Nigeria.
Yeah.
Of course, our own gas for Ghana gas, that one because it's indigenous gas, payments can be always arranged. But fuel supply is a major challenge.
So what is the way to fix Dumsor permanently?
Oh, the way to fix, let's look ahead. Like this current government is trying to look ahead. Let's look ahead. If we need LNG, let's get LNG facility as a backup. Okay? We need generation, let's bring in generation. At that time, we did some project where by now there should have been a few base load generation. Okay? And you're looking at it, so there should be, we should be planning between now and 2030. 2025 something should be coming in. 2026 what should come in. Because if your demand is growing by, let's say, 10%, and you are talking about 4,000 now, okay? 10% of 4,000 is 400, okay?
And next year, so you need at least 400 for next year.
It should be added, and it takes time, it takes money. But I strongly believe that, I mean, I had a chat with the minister recently. I believe that governments should have VRE. Will have VRE come out with a structure where VRE can expand in sort of the base load generation. I mean, there's POM where we can add a few more generations there.
So we cannot say that the power outages we are seeing now is as a result of incompetence of this government.
No. This government just came in. So if there's a fuel supply challenge, it takes time to even get your arrangement for crude oil. I know they do where they just bought some crude oil. I heard it in India. Crude oil purchases, I mean, VIA is no more running on crude oil. I know one of the IPPs is running crude oil. It comes with its own challenges. It comes with major maintenance challenges as well, not to talk about the cost. Because running on crude oil could be about 1.5 to 2 times that of running on gas. So, and of course, if ECG is not collecting enough or is not paying properly, why would you run on expensive fuel? So it is not this guy. I mean, the government just came into power.
But Dumsor is a political issue, so that's why it's convenient to say that.
It's convenient because people don't understand it. But I believe, I heard the Honourable Minister, he's going to fix it. He's on the right track. Honourable Jinapo is on the right track to fix that problem.
You foresee a solution coming?
He's on the right track. In 2014 to 2016, were they not the same people who fixed the problem? Jinapo was then Deputy Minister in the Energy.
De facto Minister of Power, because...
at that time he was running around.
But his minister had resigned.
Yes, and I mean, there are people, those who fixed the problem in 2016 are still around in the system to help fix the problem.
And you trust them?
Oh, no, I trust them. I've talked to the minister, and we trust them.
You mentioned ECG. That's a bigger problem. That's like, people think that's a weak chain.
It is the weak chain.
The weaker part of the chain.
Yeah, it is the weaker part of the chain because of all of us. I'm sure we all buy electricity. There are some who buy, they don't pay. And the system and the losses. My friend in Yamuna is now the board chairman. I trust that guy very well.
He was at Greco.
Yeah, Greco, but he's an Ashin man. I think he's going to help fix. And I know the current MD, they're going to help fix it. Because the problem is ECG are solvable. If your losses are over 30%, go where the days, you see, go where the days when the generation was on hydro. Hydro was relatively cheap. From a cost of 2 cents.
So even if you waste it, you don't lose much.
In terms, if you waste it, you don't lose much. You don't pay VIA, you don't lose much. Because that time VIA was also supplying neighboring countries. But today, where over 50 or 60% of your generation is thermal, which is crude oil based or gas based, extremely expensive, then you have to be careful.
Every wastage is
a big deal. Of money. It's a lot of money. And government spends so much money in subsidy. So look at the subsidy from government. If that level of subsidy is going waste and cannot be accounted, it has to be looked at.
One last question on this sector before we move. Why are we sending power to other countries when we are having our own problems?
Excellent. That's an excellent question. The foresight of the future of the previous Nkrumah and other people. You know, the water basin, it comes from Burkina Faso. Yeah. There's another tributary. The main tributary into the Poalugu comes from Togo. Yeah. And you've dammed it here. You don't want a situation where they're also trying to dam complete and they will not allow anything to come into the dam. So there has been that collaboration way back way back to help support those countries. Okay, so that was one of the arrangements which was put in. You can't say today you have challenge to cut them off. And of course, they were paying good money. They were paying good money at that time. Okay, so the arrangement with Togo Benin started way back, because when Akosombo was built, there were only 4 machines. Okay, they decided the plan was to add on another 2 so that as power can go through the Volta region to Togo Benin. You are looking at regional cooperation and whatever. Because if you want to think that way, Nigeria doesn't have enough gas. How can they are bringing gas here to help you? Okay. So regional cooperation is very, very important. But in the case of La Côte d'Ivoire, we have an interconnection. They give us, we give them. Okay. It's so happening that we give them more. But when I was a young engineer, sometimes we're getting more power from La Côte d'Ivoire than this. There's always a
so there are times you buy power from
yeah, some time back. But these days it's more than we supply them. But we have also maintained a grade. There are even plans, and we have interconnection with Togo Benin as well. We've been trying to connect to Nigeria, but because of reliability of their system, if you connect to a bigger system and they run into a problem, they bring you down. Okay. So we've had problem interconnecting with them.
We've discussed VRA, we've discussed ECG. There's one in the middle we haven't discussed, Gridco. There's this issue about the cables we use to transport the power. Some are obsolete. We have wastage in the system when we do the distribution. Is a problem of wastage at Gridco level or at distribution?
At distribution.
So Gridco transmission
losses. No. Transmission have losses, but they are within the standard. I mean, I think between 3 and 4%. And especially the transmission losses in Kumasi to the north was a bit high. But ever since the Mary plant was moved to Kumasi, it has also improved the transmission. So the transmission loss is not an issue today. But as demand goes on, and you see, Gridco started with 161. There's a 330 kV inter overlay, and then there's another 330 going all the way to the north. The longer your transmission, the higher the volume, the voltage level, the lower the losses. So there's a 330 kV all the way up to Burkina Faso now. There's another 330 kV that they're looking into La Côte d'Ivoire. So as and when the system grows, they have it. But they have a master plan to have 330 overlay over the 161.
So Gridco transmission is not a problem?
It's not a problem today, but then they should be looking into the future.
Very well.
And all these things, we should be looking more into the future than just today.
Okay.
The same applies to power generation. Look more into the future. What do you need this year? What do you need next year? And you should, it should be ahead. And you should have more generation, because I've had an argument with some friends where they say, oh, the reserve margin is too small, whatever. No, you got a developed country. Their peak demand could be about 20,000 or 10,000 megawatts. They have close to 20,000 megawatts. You see, for the investor to come in, the investor should see that you have more than adequate generation.
Assurance.
Then he can come in.
Finally, can we put one more turbine at Akosombo?
No.
We cannot.
No.
So this is the maximum?
Yeah, all of the engineering studies goes into all these things. Today, you have too much water, so you think if you put another turbine, you could take more out of it. But then, for a number of years, you would probably, the inflow will be too small. Right now, I can say that for the 6 turbines we have in Akosombo, we are taking a little bit too much water out of it.
Okay.
But we want to be careful, because there's always a balance between not taking too much and then the level going up.
Okay.
So you can, but you will not achieve much. In terms of energy, you not achieve much.
So stay where we are.
Yes.
This is Face to Face on ChannelOne Television. My guest is Engineer Kirk Koffi. He's former chief of the Volta River Authority. Pardon us if we've been going a lot of bit technical, but just trying to work around how we can get reliable power supply and how we can ensure, or as a nation, we can ensure that the power remains on. When we come back, I'll talk about the flooding in the basin, the Akosombo Dam Basin, and how his committee dealt with that issue and how we can ensure that's not repeated. Please stay with us.